Dear students, welcome to our YouTube channel Vidya for Success. In this video, let us continue our study on the morphology of flowering plants. Yes, so far we have discussed about one of the plant part, that is root. So we studied about the different parts of root, and also we discussed about the function and regions of root tip, and also we have discussed about the modification of root for different purpose. So now let us study the one more part of the plant, that is the stem. So how can we define the stem? So stem is ascending part of the plant. So we have studied that root is a descending part of the plant and it is non-colored. That means it is not consist of chlorophyll pigment. But if you come to the stem, it is the ascending part of the plant bearing branches, leaves, flowers and fruits. So there are different parts we can see if you come to the stem. So stem forms branches and it leads to the formation of leaves, and also we can see flowers and fruits. So these number of parts we can see on the stem. So stem is the ascending part of the plant bearing branches, leaves, flowers and fruits. It developed from the plumule of the embryo. So embryo is actually present in the seed. So embryo consists of two main regions. One is the radicle. So radicle develops into root. Plumule of the embryo develops into shoot. Right? That means the stem formation on the aerial part will takes place by the germination of plumule of the embryo. So the plumule of the embryo develops into a stem. If you look into the stem, we can identify the two main regions. One is the node and another region is the internode. So nodes and internodes are the two regions can be found in the stem. Then what do you mean by node? So node is a part of stem from where the leaves and branches will be get arises. So we can find in the diagram. So in the diagram, so they have labeled the stem. So from a particular region of stem, leaf formation will be takes place. So that particular region is called as node. So nodes are the region from where the formation of leaves takes place. And in between the two adjacent nodes, we can see the region that is called as internode. So internode is a portion between two nodes. So this is a one characteristic feature of the stem. So we can identify the stem by these two regions. That means the stem always consists of nodes and internodes. So from where the leaf and branches will form from the stem, that region is known as the nodal region, right? So in between the two adjacent node, we have a one more portion of the stem. That portion is called as internodal region. So stem, when it is in young condition, it appears green in color because it consists of chlorophyll pigment and it perform photosynthesis. But the stem, when it turns old, it become woody and it become brown color. That means it turns to woody color, and there will be no chlorophyll pigment when the stem turns to old, right? So only young stem perform photosynthesis, not the old stem, woody stem. Yes, what are the functions of stem? So we already came to know that stem is the aerial part of the plant. It grow above the region of soil. So stem spreads out branches bearing leaves, flowers and fruits. So properly it spreads the leaves, flowers and fruit to the sunlight, so that the leaves will properly get exposed to the sunlight. So all the branches which are spreads out because of the stem. And stem conducts water and mineral. So conduction of water and mineral takes place by stem. So root actually absorbs water and mineral from the soil. So after the root absorbs water and mineral, it sends it to the stem. So stem is the conducting part of the plant. So it conducts water and mineral to all part of the plant. So to the branches, leaves and to the flowers, it supplies water and minerals. So it is called as a conducting part of the plant, right? So it conducts water and minerals. Then when the stem is in young condition, it performs photosynthesis. So you might have seen or not, the young stem appears green in color. When it turns old, it will become woody and it lost chlorophyll pigment. So the young stem, because it consists of the chlorophyll pigment, it performs photosynthesis. That means it prepares its own food material by utilizing sunlight and chlorophyll pigment. So these are the main functions of the stem. So one of the function is it spreads out branches bearing leaves, flowers and fruits, because on the surface of stem we can find all these parts. And it is the conducting part of the plant. It supplies water and mineral to all other aerial part of the plant. Then the young stem perform photosynthesis. Yes, just now we discussed about the basic functions of stem in plants. So now we are going to study about modifications of stem. So not in all plants the stem performs only basic function like conduction of water and mineral and formation of leaves and branches. In some of the plants, stem is get modified to perform some other functions. Like in some plants for the storage purpose, the stem will be get modified. In some for protection, in some for um, giving support. So like this, for different purpose, the stem is get modified into different structures in different plants, right? So now let us study about the modifications of stem. So one of the purpose uh, for the modification of stem is the storage. So in order to store the food material, stem in some plants get modified. So such a stem is called as storage stem. Clear? So the purpose of the modification is the storage of food. So in order to store the food material, stem showing modification. So the best example is potato plant, ginger, turmeric plant. So in all these examples we can see the underground stem is modified to store the reserve food material. Right? You might have wondered because potato grow in the underground region, ginger and turmeric. So all these examples we can see they grow in the underground region. Right? So why they are considered to be a stem instead of root? Because when we are defining the stem, we define that stem is the aerial part of the plant, right? That is not always true in the plant. In some cases, the underground stem, that means the portion of stem buried in the soil, such a stem is called as an underground stem, right? So from the underground stem of potato plant, number of branches will be get arises. You can see in the diagram. So the main plant of potato is shown in the diagram. We can find the number of branches arises from the base of the stem, right? So the base of the stem in potato plant is buried in the soil, and those branches what are arised will store the food at the tip region. So at the tip of each branches we can find the storage part. So as a result of food storage, the tip of the branch becomes swollen, and that modified stem is called as the potato tuber. So the tuber is the modified stem in case of potato. So why the tip is get swollen? Because it stores lots of food material. Understood? And we can also find the presence of nodes and internodes in the potato. So if we keep the potato for a long period of time, we can find the formation of small white buds on its surface. Did you observe? Yes, right. So those white buds are nothing but the growing buds. So they actually arises from the nodal region. So that will show us potato is a modified stem because the stem always consists of nodes and internodes. So node is the region from where the leaves formation takes place, bud formation takes place. Clear? So potato is a modified stem so that if we keep the potato for a longer period of time from the nodal region, it leads to the formation of small buds. So those are the future plants. So if we plant the potato from the nodal region, number of plants will be get arises, right? So the storage stem act as an organ of perennation. So perennation is nothing but the survival of plant from one growing season to another growing season. So for planting the potato in the next growing season, we can use the tuber, right? So we can cut the potato tuber into number of pieces and we can sow in the soil to raise the new plant. So this is called as a perennation. So they are not only storing the food material, they also the organ. They also act as an organ of perennation, right? So these are the parts. The storage stems are the parts they tide over during unfavorable condition. So when the environment is not suitable for their growth, these parts can be used as an organ of perennation. So in order to raise the new plant in the next growing season, we can utilize this storage part of the plant, right? So this is about the storage stem. And the one more purpose of modification is for support. So in some plants, for giving additional support to the aerial part of plant, stem is get modified. So the best example of modified stem for giving support is tendril. So tendrils which are arises from the axillary bud region. What do you mean by axillary bud? Where this bud is present? So buds are nothing but the growing regions of the stem, right? So there are some buds are present in the axial region of the plant. Those buds are called as axillary buds. So you can find in the diagram, in between the stem and leaf, base of the leaf, we can find the small buds, growing buds. So those buds are called as axillary bud. Clear? So axial region is the region that is present between the stem and leaf. So from the axial region, there is a small bud formation takes place in the plant. Those buds are called as axillary bud, right? So these axillary buds in some plants will leads to the formation of branches. In some plants they leads to the formation of modified structures, right? So in certain plants, axillary bud is get modified into tendrils. What do you mean by tendrils? So tendrils are highly coiled spring-like structures. Have you seen the watermelon plant or cucumber plant? So in these two plants, we can find spirally coiled spring-like structure. So that spirally coiled spring-like structure actually the modified part of axillary bud. So axillary bud is get modified into highly coiled structure called as tendril. So this spring-like structure helps in climbing. So it climb the adjacent plant and it in turn gives support to the stem, right? So in order to give additional support to the growing stem, the axillary bud is get modified into a tendril, right? So in many plants we can see the formation of tendril. So the best example is cucumber, pumpkin, watermelon. So in all this example, stem is not solid, right? So cucumber is a climber. So when the stem is very weak, the plant need additional support. So in order to climb, the cucumber plant need support. So that additional support is given by one of the modified part of the stem. That modified part is called as tendril. So this is how the tendril give support to the weak stem. So this is the pumpkin plant. So in the pumpkin plant, Axillary bud is get modified into tendril. So the tendril climb with the very adjacent this thing plant or very adjacent supporting structure, and it give additional support to the main plant. So this is how the stem is get modified into supporting structure. Then the one more purpose of modification is for protection. So in order to protect the plant from the browsing animal, stem is showing modification. So if there is no protection to the plant, so the plants are easily eaten by the herbivorous animals, right? So in some plants, in order to protect the aerial part of the plant, there is a modified structure can be seen. So those modified structures give protection to the plants from the browsing animals. So that modified part of the stem is named as thorn. So what do you mean by thorn? Thorn is a woody, straight and pointed structure. You might have seen in the citrus plant or in the bougainvillea plant, there is a prickling structure will be present on the surface of stem, right? So those prickling structures are nothing but thorn. So the character of thorn is it is a woody, straight and pointed structure. So because it is a prickling structure, the herbivorous animals do not feed on the aerial part of such a plants, because the thorn is prickling in nature, so that the plant is not easily get eaten by the herbivorous animal. So this is a one modification of stem can be seen in some plants to protect themselves from the browsing animals. So which part of the stem will leads to the formation of thorn? So that is nothing but the axillary bud. So axillary bud in some plants get modified into a woody straight pointed structure that is called as thorn, right? So thorn is also a axillary bud modification, and tendril is also a axillary bud modification, but the purpose is different. For protection, the axillary bud in some plant is get modified into thorn, and for giving support, the axillary bud in some plant is get modified into highly coiled spring like structure, right? So the best example of plants where we can see thorn is citrus and bougainvillea plant. So bougainvillea plant is commonly called as paper flower plant. So you can find in the citrus plant in the diagram, so the woody pointed structure what we can observe on the stem, so those are named as thorn. So because of the thorn, the plants are not easily get eaten by the herbivorous animals, right? So this is the kind of natural protection plant as developed by modifying its one of the plant part called as stem. Clear? So in each of the this thing you have to remember which part of the stem is modified, right? Yes. So we have few more modifications of stem that we will discuss in the next class. Thank you.